I watched her do it. I watched Karen Templeton, queen of the HOA clipboard warrior, self-appointed god of community standards, stand there smiling while a bulldozer ripped apart the beaver habitat on my land. Branch by branch, stone by stone, she flattened it like it was trash. I didn't lift a finger to stop her. I didn't have to. Because a month later those beavers came back, hundreds of them, and they sent her entire neighborhood straight to hell under 6 feet of muddy water. I know that sounds insane, but trust me, this story gets stranger, uglier, and a whole lot wetter. I wasn't always the guy fighting an HOA with a colony of aquatic engineers. I used to be Sergeant Sam Dempsey, 20 years in the Army, 2 Purple Hearts, 1 folded flag. When my wife Maggie died 6 months after I retired, I ran not far, just far enough from people noise expectations. I bought 5 acres on the edge of the mountains, a place so quiet the creek sounded like breathing. I built Maggie a little cedar bench beside the water, carved her initials into it, and convinced myself peace was something you built with your hands and guarded with your silence. Then came the beavers. One morning the creek stopped arguing with the rocks and started singing. Overnight a family had built a perfect little dam, turning the trickle into a mirrored pond. Dragonflies hovered like stained glass kingfishers stitched the air, and for the first time since Maggie's last breath, I didn't feel alone. I'd sit on that bench with coffee in hand and talk to her like she was still listening. Maybe she was. For 2 years nobody bothered us. Not the county, not the neighbors, not even the HOA. I guess peace always ends the moment someone decides it's inconvenient. She arrived in a spotless white Escalade, wearing sunglasses big enough to receive satellite signals and heels sharp enough to pierce the Earth's crust. "Mr. Dempsey," she said with a fake smile, stretched tighter than a cheap balloon. "I'm with the Architectural Review Committee. We have concerns about the rear portion of your parcel. Concerns about my land." She waved toward the beaver pond like it offended her personally. Standing water debris mosquito risks visual disharmony. The board is exploring a beautification initiative, perhaps a tasteful footbridge. I didn't let her finish. "Ma'am, the only thing tasteful around here is the silence. And that pond isn't debris, it's wildlife. You don't touch it." Her smile didn't fade, but something behind her eyes cracked. "We'll be in touch," she chirped, sinking back into her Escalade like a pharaoh ascending her chariot. And that was the first cold drop of trouble down my spine. The letters started next. Cream-colored envelopes stamped with the HOA's golden acorn crest. Polite words wrapped around threats. Phrases like community standards, shared watershed responsibility, and my personal favorite aesthetic harmony. I burned them in a barrel beside the shed. Then one morning I woke to stakes hammered along my creek. Bright orange flags marched across the mud like an invading army, stopping 1 foot inside my property line. I moved my trail cam from the deer feeder to the dam and waited. A week later came an email from Karen. Exciting updates for Creekview Lane. The attachment showed a photoshopped version of my land pond, removed Beaver Lodge, erased a sterile blue oval labeled decorative water feature, a gazebo, a walking trail, even a bench with the HOA logo exactly where Maggie's bench sat. That was when I realized she wasn't just trying to beautify the creek, she was trying to own it. At the neighborhood meeting, she presented her fantasy like a dictator unveiling a new flag. She clicked through slides talking about reclaiming wetland and community cohesion until someone whispered, "Isn't that Sam's land?" I stood up, walked to the front, and clicked to my own slide, the county plat map with the bright red property line cutting exactly where it should. "This is the creek," I said. "This is my land. And that pond is a protected wetland under state and federal law. Anyone touches it without permits, you're looking at fines that'll make your grandchildren cry." Half the room turned on her. Karen smiled a smile that said, "You just made this personal." She was right. 3 days later I came home to find Maggie's cedar bench dragged into my driveway like a trophy. The stone leg cracked, the carved initials gouged. Something inside me went quiet, the same quiet you hear before incoming fire. I set the bench back where it belonged. Then I bought more cameras, motion sensors, lock boxes, laminated documents. I wasn't building a homestead anymore, I was building a fortress. And still part of me wondered, is this worth it? Is this really the hill I want to die on? I'd lost enough battles in life. Maybe giving in was easier. But then I remembered Maggie sitting beside me on that bench, saying what she always said before a hard fight. Pick your battle, Sam, and finish it. So I dug in. County inspectors came. Wildlife officers came. They all said the same thing. This is a protected wetland. The HOA can't touch it. But Karen, she didn't hear can't. She only heard not yet. Which is why at 3:47 a.m. during a rainstorm, I woke to the unmistakable whine of chainsaws. I ran outside Boots boxers, shotgun pointed at the ground. 2 trucks sat by the dam, 4 men in rain gear hacking at the structure while water rushed around their ankles. And stepping out from behind them, yellow rain slicker hood up, clipboard absolutely present, was Karen. "You're too late, Mr. Dempsey," she shouted through the storm. "We have an emergency health authorization." "No," I said, calm as death. "You have 10 seconds to leave my property before the sheriff, the state police, and federal wildlife officers get here, and every one of you will be charged." The youngest guy shut off his chainsaw immediately. "Smart kid," Karen hissed. "This isn't over." She was right again. It had barely begun. 48 hours later, inspectors posted bright orange cease and desist notices along every flag she'd planted. They told her contact with the wetland was illegal. They warned her in writing. So naturally, she did the opposite. At dawn on Monday, under gray sky and sheets of freezing rain, 2 bulldozers, a track hoe, a dump truck, and Karen's SUV rolled into my driveway. She had a new forged letter claiming mosquito mitigation emergency. I filmed everything chest camera drone tripod. She marched toward me, umbrella snapping in the wind. "Step aside, Mr. Dempsey." "No," I said, "you step aside." And then federal agents arrived. SUVs, badges, rain-slick jackets. Special Agent Hill stepped out like the storm was afraid of him. "Shut your equipment down," he said. "This is protected land." Karen sputtered. The contractors hesitated. Then nature made the final decision. A low groan echoed from the creek, a sound older than the mountains. The Beaver Dam weakened from her sabotage, swollen with days of rain, finally slumped forward. Not an explosion, more like a sigh. And then the water came. A 4-foot wall smashed into the first bulldozer, knocking it sideways into the mud. The second machine tried to climb the bank but slid helpless into the torrent. The track hoe toppled like a drunk giraffe. The dump truck driver simply jumped out and ran. Within 90 seconds, the lower cul-de-sac was a river. Within 3 minutes, the water reached the model home, the one Karen staged herself, and lifted its garage door like a drawbridge. She stood there screaming at me, mascara running, rain soaking her hair. "This is your fault." "No," I said. "This is what happens when you fight the land." But even as I said it, a part of me cracked. I wondered, did I push too hard? Did my stubbornness do this? Did I let my grief turn into war? For the first time in the fight, I didn't feel righteous. I felt tired. But then the beavers appeared, heads breaking the water one by one, steady, calm, unafraid. They weren't angry. They were rebuilding, surviving. And I remembered something bullies only win when good people stop fighting. So I kept filming. For days, rain hammered the neighborhood. HOA culverts clogged walkways, washed out homes, flooded twice. Karen vanished for a while, probably hiding in a hotel, trying to convince herself none of this was her fault. Then one night my trail cams lit up. Her rented SUV pulled up beside the creek. She got out with a 5-gallon jug of industrial herbicide, the kind that kills everything it touches. She knelt at the top dam and unscrewed the cap. I ran. Through the woods, through the mud, through a kind of panic I hadn't felt since combat. "Step away from the water, Karen." She jumped, flashlight swinging wildly. "You don't understand. They ruined everything." Before I could reply, the beavers answered for me. 11 of them surged from the water, slapping tails, hissing, charging straight at her. She screamed, stumbled backward, dropped the jug. Poison splashed across her legs and into the mud. She fled into her half-collapsed model home and locked the door behind her. The beavers stopped at the threshold, watching like a jury. Then the sky cracked open again. 6 inches of rain in 90 minutes. The last retaining wall behind her house groaned, shuddered, then blew apart. A wave of mud punched through the kitchen, carrying her marble island into the night. Half the house folded in on itself and slid into the new channel. Karen staggered outside, barefoot, drenched, shaking, screaming into a dead phone. By the time deputies and federal agents arrived, she was sitting in her ruined driveway, rocking back and forth, whispering about rodents and lawsuits and how none of this was fair. Hill cuffed her gently. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for attempted introduction of toxic substances into a protected waterway in addition to multiple existing charges." She didn't resist. She just stared at the water where her kingdom used to be. And that was the end of it. As they loaded her into the cruiser, I stood by the shattered edge of the creek, soaked to the bone, exhausted, grieving, relieved. The Beavers surfaced in a crescent behind me, calm as saints. For the first time since this whole thing started, the land was quiet again. And if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's simple. You can fight nature, you can threaten it, you can pretend you control it. But sooner or later, nature settles the score.